Mike, Noah Grubbs, Brian Williams, two electric offensive players from the class of 2026, and they have something in common. They go to the same high school, and you had the chance to watch them recently.
I did. I was at their spring game on Thursday, which was a really good opportunity to see both prospects. I've seen Grubbs a ton. He's been committed to Notre Dame since last June, and I saw him at Irish Invasion that year. I saw him on 2 games last fall, Elite 11, and then this week. So I might be forgetting another time or two. So it has been pretty frequent, Darren. And yeah, like you said, I did get to see him and got some footage for folks watching on YouTube. And Darren, I will say it was a struggle. When I left with a couple minutes left, they were losing 37-3 against like an all-star team. Like it's a team called the First Academy. They're trying to be like an IMG, but their biggest strength was their defensive line, and Lake Mary is replacing some starters on their offensive line. So it was a bit of a struggle, but I will say where Grubbs, like you wanted to see him improve a good bit, was what he looks like outside the pocket. Because like if things are fine and clean in the pocket, he can dice anybody up. And of course, Grubbs, long-time quarterback commit for the Irish in the 26th class. And when you don't have much time and you're forced as a quarterback to either take a sack or get outside the pocket, and he showed ability to get outside the pocket. He made some really nice plays with his legs. And for folks watching on YouTube, I did include some drops on here because he had, which that seam ball, was a very nice one and was dropped by his receiver, but it delivered some nice passes downfield. Didn't have a ton of time, but I was impressed with how he moved outside the pocket. Thought he commanded that aspect of his game well. So I think overall, despite a pretty tough night on the scoreboard, just looking at him specifically as a passer, I actually came away like, okay, moved really well. He did have an interception on a throw, his first attempt of the game. Miscommunication between he and Brian Williams. We'll talk about in a second. There's a choice route, and Williams stopped. Grubbs thought he was going to keep going. I do think that Grubbs misread that on that play. He had a defender running up in his face, when he completed his drive, which did not help things, but did want to note that. And so his teammate is, again, Brian Williams, 6'4", 185 pounds. He's a 3-star, but a fast riser. Bama, Notre Dame, Florida, Kentucky, among the top schools. Blue and Gold was first to report that Williams has locked in an official visit with Notre Dame for the June 20th weekend. I got to talk to Williams before the game, and he revealed that update to me. And yeah, I thought Williams had a nice game. He definitely looks the part, Darren. Like that size, 6'4", 185 pounds that he's listed at, definitely seems to be legit. Really nice player, runs good routes, but just seems to have a ton of potential to tap into. And yeah, I mean, with the struggles to protect Grubbs, Williams didn't get really a chance to work a ton downfield, but looked good in the intermediate passing game. Nice hands, caught everything that touched his hands, if I recall correctly. So yeah, Williams, nice player. I think that Notre Dame would be fired up if they're able to add him. They definitely could use some size. Their current two wide receiver commits right now, sub 6 foot guys, Bubba Frazier and Dylan Faison. So they got guys like Caden Finley on the board and Cohen Brown, 6 foot and above. But you can never be too sure. You want to expand the board, have more names. And Brian Williams, I thought was a really good guy for them to offer this season, earlier in this off season. So we'll continue to track where things are at for Brian Williams. But again, tough night on the scoreboard. Williams, I thought, looked really good. He's a downfield threat with that size. We didn't really get to see that. But Grubbs getting outside the pocket, I actually left Lake Mary thinking, all right, Noah made some nice plays with his legs.
Let's stick with the Sunshine State with our next storyline. And Notre Dame has offered a Florida State commit.
Yeah, this one's interesting. So last week. Notre Dame running backs coach Jaywan Sider and wide receivers coach Mike Brown made it to the Sunshine State, which of course Sider is a native of Florida, and they were down a lot in like the East Coast, going down south, and one of their stops was at Vero Beach, which is one of the top high school programs in the state of Florida. And they offered Ephraim White. So you have like the Florida connections with Sider. I'm sure, he's been recruiting Vero Beach for some time, whether he was at Penn State or with the Florida Gators. And then you have Mike Brown being the receivers coach. So a good visit here. Ephraim White, 6'1", listed at 155 pounds. I'm sure that's an outdated weight. He's been committed to the Seminoles since December of 2023. So a long time, pledge to Florida State, but it seems like, Darren, he's pretty interested in Notre Dame. Obviously the Irish come in a little bit late to the party here, but he said, quote, to On3's Chad Simmons, it means a lot to get an offer like this. Notre Dame is one of those schools I have been hoping would offer me since I was a freshman. I like how they develop players, and I hope to learn more about what they have to offer. And White continued in this interview, I am hoping to get up there for an official visit. So he's committed to Florida State. He talked about that in the article, but it appears that Notre Dame might get him for an official visit. And he's listed as an athlete and a 4-star prospect, but Notre Dame liking him at wide receiver, which I believe is the same position that Florida State has him committed for. So again, talked about that with Brian Williams, like added him to the board earlier in the offseason, along with more longtime targets. And Ephraim White offered, and now Notre Dame might be able to flip him away from Florida State. It'll be something to keep an eye on.